Hey everybody, we're back for another segment of Bookends. I'm Chucky, he's Jason, this is our buddy Teaser. We're not going to beat around the bush, we're going to dive right into it. It's college basketball tournament time. They're down to the Final Four. It's Gonzaga. I mean, everybody thought they would be there, Jay. They're playing really, really well. UCLA, a team that nobody thought would be there, had to win that play-in game against Michigan State, and they bet against UCLA in that game, and they won it. And then you've got two Texas teams with Baylor and Houston in it as well. The tournament's been great, the atmosphere, the crowds. But let's talk about Gonzaga a little bit. Looking to be the second team since 1976, when Indiana went undefeated during the regular season, went undefeated in the tournament, cut down the nets as national champion. One of the unique things about that season, both Kentucky and Duke weren't in the tournament. Guess which two teams weren't in the tournament this year? Kentucky and Duke. How coincidental is that? But they've looked really, really good. They are a 2-touchdown favorite right now as we speak over UCLA. The other numbers are a little bit shorter than that between Baylor and Houston. But what do you think about the Zags and their chances of winning the national championship?
Well, I don't think it's changed since the tournament tipped off. They're clearly the favorite to win the tournament. They've been nothing but dominant throughout their first three games. They've been nothing but dominant throughout the season. You look back, they played West Virginia early in the season and won that game by 5. They also knocked off Kansas, Iowa, and Virginia early in the season, and then they went into the West Coast Conference. But outside of that game against West Virginia, every single game that they've played, they've won by more than 10 points. And I think that's an NCAA record that they're running on right now.
The public's done really well backing them in most of those games.
And they look it. I mean, the eye test when you watch them play on the court, both from a defensive and offensive standpoint, all 5 guys on the court can score. They can go down low. They can shoot the ball. I mean, they're doing everything that you would expect to talk about an undefeated college basketball team potentially to do. And UCLA, Mick Cronin's pulled some magic here to get this team to this point. It was an interesting strategy against Michigan with really, really slowing the game down and playing a half-court game. And I thought he kind of out-coached Howard. You saw him on that sideline really directing the offense every single possession as to where guys needed to stand, who needed to go, trying to get isolations and that type of stuff. I think
that came off the heels of him not making a great coaching decision by not fouling against Alabama at the end of the game. And he's a guy that always fouled. He let them take the 3. I know it was their center and it was almost a half-court shot, but still, you foul, that game doesn't go into overtime. So he made a great coaching decision. I think he outcoached, I agree with you, Michigan, but really struggled a little bit late in that game against Alabama.
Yeah, and we're going to see if the Zags just can run the floor. If UCLA's got a chance to slow this pace down, obviously they need to keep it a lower scoring game, and obviously if you're looking to take them plus the 14 points or 13.5 points, 14 points, you're going to be looking them to play a low scoring game and try and stay in this game. They're going to have to shoot absolutely fantastic from the outside to stay in the game.
They can't go through those scoring droughts either.
Yep.
They had both those droughts against Alabama and against Michigan where they go over 3 minutes without a bucket. You can't do that against Gonzaga.
Yeah, and if the Zags get through this, we're looking at them probably being somewhere around a 5 or 6 point favorite versus Baylor, and somewhere in that 9 or 10 range versus Houston. Again, somewhat waiting to see how those teams look against each other going into the final. If one of those teams blows one of the teams out, maybe there's a little bit more backing there, or the power rating comes down. But the Zags are going to continue to be the favorite to win the tournament here.
I mean, I think even looking at the Battle of Texas between Baylor and Houston, although a number 2 seed, people weren't really looking at them that much. I mean, they were a little bit more considered a sleeper, even though a number 2 seed. I don't think anybody's surprised that Baylor is in the Final Four. They played so well early in the season, kind of tapered off a little bit toward the end, but they're a really good team too. And I think from the time the tournament started, everyone was thinking about, could it be Gonzaga against Illinois or Gonzaga against Baylor, and they might get 2 number 1s playing in the championship.
If we would have been talking in January or early February, it was the Gonzaga versus Baylor, and Illinois might have found their way into that conversation. And then Baylor went through the long COVID break. That team had almost a 3-week break due to COVID, and then they came back and they didn't look particularly good. They've looked absolutely fantastic through the tournament here, beating the teams that they're supposed to beat. Houston, on the other side, has gotten the we'll call it the gift of the NCAA tournament. They've actually played nothing but double-digit seeds. They were a 2 seed, knocked off 15 Cleveland State, number 10 Rutgers, number 11 Syracuse, and number 12 Oregon State. First time that's ever been done in a tournament for a team to make the Final Four by beating nothing but double-digit seeds.
And they bet Syracuse against them, though, thinking that their bigs couldn't handle
and Houston's looked good, but again, the competition that they've played is not what we've expected to be those top-tier teams. They've been able to knock off some lower-level teams. So this is going to be a huge test in Baylor. We'll see if they're going to have to, again, the same thing you talk about UCLA. Houston's going to have to clamp down on defense. James is going to have to kind of run that show, not find a lot of foul trouble, not get down early, I think, is one of the things that Houston's going to not want to do, is get down early and have to be chasing this Baylor team. And Baylor's a lot bigger on the inside than what I think Houston has. So I personally think that we're looking at the two favorites, and I think we have a good matchup with the Zags and Baylor on
which would be great for national championship. Also, speaking about the college basketball tournament, I'm going to touch on last man standing. There's 10 contestants left in our college basketball last man standing contest. Over 2,800 were in the contest. Prize pool was over 42,000. So there's 10 contestants left. 2 games, the final 4 games left, and the national championship. Tiebreaker, of course, is picking the national champion. So it should be fun for those 10 contestants.
Yeah, and we watch the contest kind of half-life its way down. So if there's 10 going into the final 4, well, we should end up somewhere in that 4 to 6 contestants going into the final. And if it half-life's 3 of them pick a winner, it's going to come down to who they had in that national championship. So we'll start to pull their entry forms and see who they had in the national championship. But it won't surprise me at all if a vast number of those entries have the Zags as their tournament champion.
And Baylor, you might have.
We may see a split this year, and a couple people getting paid as the last man standing.
Right. So last man standing has always been a fun contest, guys. And now as we're talking about the college basketball tournament winding down, baseball will be starting as well. Such a great time to get signed up for STN Mobile. We still have up to that $500 bonus going on for new signups. We've got kiosks in all of our race and sports books, including the Wildfire Gaming properties, the El Cortez. If there's a line or it's busy with all this going on, either get signed up for the mobile app or try one of the kiosks. Super convenient, gets you in and out really, really quick. But I'm excited about baseball starting.
Yeah, and you talk about the app again for baseball season. We always are kind of touching on the convenience of the app and the ease of getting down. And one of the things that with baseball season is, especially in this first month of the season, when we talk about the East Coast, you start to see a lot more day games and matinee games, and you're not playing the evening games just to stay away from the cooler weather and the evening in that East Coast until we get a little bit deeper into spring and summer. So a lot of daytime activity. So whether you're at work or at home, make sure you get that app to be able to get signed up and play those games. And a lot of weather cancellations possible. So if your game gets rained out, you're able to pop onto another game really quickly. As we sit here, as opening day, we're already seeing a couple cancellations and some stuff like that. But baseball's got some really, really interesting taglines or storylines as we go into the season here. I think it starts kind of on the West Coast with us, where we talk about both the Dodgers and Padres making big offseason moves. You could argue that they're the two best teams in baseball in the same division. Dodgers obviously have the highest win total on the board from a regular season win standpoint, but getting Trevor Bauer from Cincinnati, free agent, but getting him from Cincinnati is a really one of the biggest moves of the offseason. He was coveted by several teams out there. The Dodgers were able to land him, so goes right into that rotation with Kershaw and Buehler with obviously a rock-solid lineup. And in San Diego, some of the biggest moves of the offseason, acquiring 2 big pitchers in Yu Darvish and Blake Snell, and actually a third pitcher in Musgrove from the Pirates to go along with a really developing offense.
It's going to be fun watching those two teams
play. Machado and a young outfielder, Trent Grisham, is really going to be a guy that I think you're going to want to circle. That's going to be an outstanding player this season. But the Dodgers and Padres are going to make things interesting on the West Coast. And I don't know if you want to touch on maybe the Cardinals.
Yeah, Cardinals, they're going to be really good, too, picking up Arenado. You look at the Mets with picking up Lindor. There's a lot of great stories. The Blue Jays with Springer, although he's going to start the season on the injured list. But there's a lot of good storylines. And with baseball, don't forget, guys, there are so many different ways to bet the game. You can bet the game with the money line, the total, the run line, reverse run line. You can list pitchers. You can list one pitcher. There's a lot of different kind of rules. So get familiarized with that. Look at our house rules. Come on in and chat with one of us. Games do have to go a certain amount of innings, 8.5 or 9 innings for the run line and total to be action. But there are a lot of different ways to bet baseball. So feel free to come in any one of our books and chat with a supervisor, one of our ticket writers, and they can kind of walk you through the process if need be.
Yeah, and it's not only the games. Again, we've got the first 5 inning lines, first team to score. Baseball's got a lot of props. We're continuing to add props on players to hit home runs, pitchers, their strikeouts.
We had everything up.
So there's really fun. The baseball menu is gigantic. We've got a menu up of kind of regular season props, player to hit the most home runs and RBIs and pitcher wins, and we're going to leave those up for a couple days here before the season starts, so you can actually get a bet on those as you see the players in their first rounds. And you touched on Toronto getting Springer. That's one of my my kind of sleeper teams. If I had to look at a team that I think maybe can surprise, and obviously
they have a lot of young talent too to go with
loaded.
Springer.
They're
right?
absolutely loaded in their lineup with the Biggio and Bichette and Hernandez and Guerrero and Gurriel. Yep. I mean, it's a lot of young kids, and they're going to make some waves. They've acquired some pitching. They've got some injuries on the back end of their rotation, but again, Toronto I think can make some waves, especially with Boston, and I think Tampa might fall off a little bit. That they might be right behind chasing the Yankees as that next team in the East.
Yeah, baseball's so much fun now because there's so many teams with optimism, and it's going to be fun getting it back.
Not on our Chicago side. Right. Obviously, one of the bigger disappointments of the offseason was the Cubs, and kind of watching the mass exodus of several of their players, and Darvish and Lester and some of those guys.
Still have Rizzo, Baez, and Bryant.
Yep.
I mean, there's been talk about a contract extension for Rizzo. It came in a lot less than what he had hoped for. He says he won't negotiate once the season starts. Cubs say we're still willing to negotiate. Is Baez there? What happens with Chris Bryant? There's been a lot of rumblings about him potentially being traded. Could he be moved at the deadline? Jock Peterson has lit it up in the Cactus League. He only has a year deal. I think the Cubs might be a major seller if they're not contending by the trade deadline.
On the other side, I think the south side of Chicago there's a whole nother level of excitement. Made the managerial change, going to the ageless wonder of Tony La Russa, and bring in a big guy on the back end, and Liam Hendricks, and
losing Jimenez is big.
Yeah, losing Eloy to the injury, but again, that's another young, exciting team with Giolito leading that pitching staff. So the White Sox again at the top, are going to threaten that.
Tim Anderson, They got a lot of young, talented players on that team. Kind of flipped from what we talked about the last few years. You look at the win totals for the Cubs and Sox, and the Sox are right there. They were that Vogue team last year that we talked about going into the season that everybody bet. It's clearly that they followed suit with that as well again this year. So we've talked a little bit about hoops. We've talked some baseball. Now let's talk some hockey. I mean, the trade deadline's less than 2 weeks away. You look at 3 of the 4 divisions in hockey right now, just unbelievable how close they are. The Knights currently are in a battle with the Avs. They've still got games against the Avs, but hockey's really going to be exciting. And I think this year you're going to see a lot of movement at the trade deadline with the shortened season and just teams adding that extra piece. Because don't forget now, you're the top 4 teams from every division. You definitely get 4 Canadian teams to make the postseason, and one of those will be in the Final Four. I think there'll be a lot of movement coming up in the next few weeks.
Yeah, points are coveted on a nightly basis. These divisional races are absolutely fantastic. You touched on the Avs and the Knights. I think they're at 49 and 50 points, with the Knights having a game in hand. But that's going to be a race that's going to run down to the end. The Central on the East is absolutely fantastic. Tampa's leading things right now. But
Florida and Carolina are right there.
Yeah, they're both right there. And again, it's strange because the league isn't playing the league, and we're staying in the kind of in these mini bubbles of teams playing the teams only in their own conference. So it's really good teams at the top.
A little bit more chippiness on a nightly basis.
Yeah, well, and it's the good teams at the top, and they can't afford to lose to the bad teams at the bottom and pick up those points on a nightly basis. So when we watch a team like Buffalo, who lost 18 straight games and was finally able to break that streak by beating the Flyers, that's a devastating loss to the Flyers, because everybody else has been picking those points up on a nightly basis. And so teams like the Red Wings, and they're kind of getting picked on a nightly basis. The Kings were able to just pull a big upset over our Knights again. But you watch them creep up, they're getting close to the Blues in the points. So this finish of the NHL regular season is going to be absolutely fantastic, and you're not going to want to miss any night of it. And again, we've got a lot of props up on the all the hockey games, guys to score goals, reverse puck lines, all that type of stuff. So just make sure to continue to check the app for all the hockey plays.
Pro basketball as well. I mean, Lakers go out and pick up Drummond. The Nets a few weeks ago pick up Blake Griffin. I mean, it looks like these two teams kind of positioning themselves and kind of on a collision course, East Coast, West Coast. But maybe the Clippers have something to say about that. Maybe the Bucks. But those two teams right now are two teams that look to be just really, really tough.
Yeah, and again, it's pick and choose who's playing what night. But you look at the Nets and what they've been able to build, not only getting Blake Griffin, but LaMarcus Aldridge, out of San Antonio. They're a 5. We talk about the 3-headed monster. Not that Griffin is. The
NBA is a little bit different than all the other leagues because of that.
They're now a 5-headed monster, and I don't know in the East that anybody's going to get through Brooklyn, and it's just going to matter of. I don't know. You talk about the Lakers and Clippers. I don't know that you can write off Utah or Phoenix at this point in time. But both of those teams are absolutely fantastic, and the injuries that these teams are facing, that the Lakers are facing, they're gonna all be healthy miraculously by the time we get to the NBA playoffs. But I don't think you can write the Jazz or Suns off. I think that the West is going to be much more open than what the East may be.
Yeah, I think the NBA postseason is going to be great. We're talking about the NHL close to their trade deadline. What's going to happen there? The start of Major League Baseball. Of course, we've got the Final Four in the National Championship less than a week away. So again, this is such a great time to get signed up for STN Mobile, up to a $500 bonus. It really does bring the sports book to the palm of your hand wherever you are in Las Vegas or Nevada. It's just such a great tool right now with so many different things going on. The Masters is right around the corner. Horse racing's been fun. We've got a bunch of twin Qs that are going to be going on during the month of April. Great time to get the mobile app.
Yeah, and you can't not get down. This is the time. We got that $500, and I'll tell you, the month of April is going to be the last month that we're going to offer this up to $500 bonus. It's going to be changing in May. We've got another exciting offer coming from in May, but the up to $500, you've got to get down in April to get that promotion. So get down to the book today. Bring that deposit money, as the bonus is based off of 10% of your initial deposit amount. So the bigger your deposit amount, up to that $5,000, the bigger that bonus is going to be.
Yep, it's great. And don't forget, try one of our Racing Sportsbook kiosks. They are super convenient, gang. The guests really seem to love them a lot. If you haven't tried them, give it a try. He's Jason. I'm Chucky. This is Teaser. Great to be back with you guys on Bookends. We'll see you next week.